Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Today I'm going to talk a little bit more about my new revisions to D&D and talk about what I've done with skills. And as I said before, my skill system is kind of an amalgam between like first edition or basic and Lamentations of the Flame Princess and even some D20 type stuff. So I'll go over what I'm doing with those. And of course D&D is not a skill-based game, but I think some skills are helpful. And of course there's always been skills, at least with thief skills. So I'm just going to go over what I've done with those, and there are some racial modifiers and what have you, and situational modifiers to be sure. Now, essentially, what I was looking at was Lamentations of the Flame Princess had a really great idea where he was using D6, and you had like a 1 in 6 chance of being able to do any of these skills that he listed. And then if you were a specialist or thief, you got to add more points to that, so you got better and better at whatever skills you wanted to, and that's kind of neat. And of course, in something like D20 Pathfinder, people are able to add skill ranks to stuff. I was initially thinking of using D12 because I didn't think the Lamentations thing was granular enough, but I decided that I also really wanted to use ability score modifiers to adjust these skills. And I realized that like if I did that, then like the +1, +2, +3 would just be too powerful on a D12, so I went and used a D20. The big difference I'm doing is instead of from like Pathfinders, instead of saying, well, you have 8 skill ranks in this skill, so you're going to add 8 to your D20 roll, and there's going to be a difficulty, DC or whatever. Instead, I'm saying, okay, well, that's going to give you an extra. If you have like an 18 dexterity, and it's a skill that's based on dexterity, well, now you have another 3 in 20 chance of being able to do this. And of course, with any skill, there's going to be a situational modifier that you may or may not know about. If I say this is a hard trap, if this is, some people are really watching you, so stealth is going to be really hard. So I'll just go over these as fast as I can. First, I have like just 2 static skills, and that could be a Freudian slip. I don't know. One of it is open doors, and it's for like the stupid heavy iconic dungeon door, and a lot of like feats of strength. Although I do some other things for feats of strength occasionally, and depending on your strength, you'll have a 1 in 6, 2 in 6, 3 in 6, chance of being able to do stuff like that. And the other thing is being able to know languages, and that's kind of like you encounter orcish for the first time, and it's going to be modified by your intelligence, just like doors would be modified by strength. This is your chance to either be able to learn this or just totally fail at the whole idea. So those are static. The other ones I have are more skills that you can improve on and actually add pips and points to. Now what I've done is I was doing a lot of math and how can I make this really close to what first edition was in terms of percentage stuff, and I guess the guys at D20 did their homework, because essentially what I end up doing is giving thieves or specialists 8 pips per level to go ahead and apply wherever they'd like. It sounds familiar. With the other classes right now I'm just giving 2, regardless of what that class is. I may alter that, but for the most part I really want the specialists to shine as being the guys that are really able to put a lot of points there. And at first level the thieves are actually able to put 16 all over the place. And I start most of these static skills with the exception of a couple which are either like 1 or improvable skills. They either start at a 1 in 20 chance, or a lot of them start at like a 3 in 20 or 4 in 20 chance, just base. Everybody's able to do it about that well. Let's just go over what these skills are. One is called architecture, and that's right from Lamentations, and it kind of covers that whole idea of the dwarves being able to being able to be really good at like checking out stonework and all this stuff, and so it applies both above and below ground. And the next one is called bushcraft, and that's really similar to like first edition ranger skills, or some kind of survival skills in the wilderness. It covers this big huge umbrella because I didn't want to have a bunch of skills. I'd rather have kind of a global skill for everything. The next one is climbing, and it's like how are you being able to climb near sheer surfaces, and this is going to be modified by strength. Knowledge, this is kind of a catch-all for any sort of fact and information you want to see if you know or not. And it's going to be sometimes modified by class or level, type of knowledge, how obscure it is. And this is going to be modified by intelligence. Read languages is like the old first edition thief skills, and it just kind of represents the ability to be able to read part of a language and also like how much you're going to be able to make out, and it's modified by intelligence as well. There's one called Search, which is kind of like the old looking for traps, finding secret doors, looking for stuff, etc. It's going to be modified by the average of intelligence and wisdom modifiers rounded up. So an intelligent person, if they succeed, might be told, well, you see this. A wise person might be told, something's not right. You seem to see something like that here. So I'm, because I don't like the idea of perception checks as such being modified just by wisdom. That never really rang true for me, and that's a role that's going to be made in secret. Sleight of hand covers the whole pickpockets thing, but just any kind of sleight of hand, filching things in the open, trying to hide an item. Just trying to do something relatively sneaky, and it's modified by dexterity. Let's see, stealth covers the whole standard, move silently, hide in shadows, all that kind of stuff, and it also is going to be crucial for if you're trying to make a sneak attack. And it's going to be modified by dexterity, and it's also going to be circumstantially modified by your encumbrance. Something like tinkering. And that's another catch-all. That's the open locks, find traps, or remove traps rather, set traps, all that kind of stuff. And this is going to be modified by the average of your dexterity and intelligence scores. I think that's fair. Once again, rounded up. Hearing noise is like a classic listen at doors skill. Unlike other skills, you're only going to be able to add 1 point to the skill per level. Other ones, you can kind of add as many points as you'd like to. And the various races kind of start off with like 2 and 20 or 3 and 20 chance to be able to do that. The last 4 skills for the most part are only improvable by thieves at this point, unless a demi-human starts out with a base in a skill, where orcs would start out with some assassination. The first one is called Read and Use Magic, and this is that whole first edition vibe where a thief is able to kind of maybe read a scroll, maybe be able to use a magic item that's only supposed to be able to be used by a wizard. And this is going to be modified by intelligence, and it starts out at a 0 and 20, and any intelligence bonus is only going to be given on a 1-per-1 basis with how many points you have. So if you have a +3 in intelligence, the first point you put in is going to give you another 1. The second point is going to you'll be able to add the 2, and the third point be able to add the final third skill. If you fail at this, it's going to be catastrophic. There's another one called dual wielding. Only fighters in this game have a standard dual wielding penalty, and I've done some stuff. I'll talk about weapons, but you think the normal, say, first edition penalty, where if you got a sword and a dagger, your penalties to hit are -2 with a primary weapon, with being the sword, and -4 with a dagger. Everybody else actually suffers -2 to that. I don't like the idea that nobody can, like the second edition idea, nobody but thieves and fighters can dual wield. It just seems silly. But thieves are going to start out at a lower level like everybody else, but they're able to assign pips to be finally able to do this like a thief. And I'm going to have 8 points entirely in this skill. If you add 4 points, well, then you're going to add another +1 to that. And if you add all 8, then you're going to be able to fight just as well as a fighter with 2 weapons. The other one is the whole sneak attack, where, depending on how many pips you put in this, for every 4 pips you put in this thing, you're going to be able to do another multiple of damage. It's either going to be another d6 of damage, or just, you're going to do, ×2 damage, and then ×3, ×4, ×5. So it's kind of like the old backstab thing. And once again, if you don't do a successful stealth check, well, you're kind of screwed as far as that's concerned. And the last one I was messing around with was the idea of assassination, which is kind of an interesting one. It starts out at, I hope I didn't talk about this already, but it starts at a 0 and 20 chance. Might start out at a 1 and 20, I'm not sure. But the idea is that if you do some kind of sneak attack and you say, well, I'm going to try to assassinate this guy right off the bat, and you have a, say, 40% chance of assassination. If this guy, like a humanoid for the most part, is your same level, then now you have a 40% chance of just assassinating this guy outright, which is kind of cool. If the guy is a level higher than you are, then it gets modified, in his favor by 5%. If you're a level higher than he is, it gets modified by 5% in your favor. That kind of mimics a little bit the old first edition tables. So I like those skills, and there's also like 4 blank slots on my sheet where you can just say, hey, can I be skilled in this or that, the other thing. A lot of the other skills that you would normally think of, or whatever, and maybe some sailing stuff, and being good at handling animals and whatnot. I still like the idea of players being able to have a backstory and say, hey, well, I did this, did that, and so if we come to a certain situation, I'm going to be like, hey, yeah, okay, you have a better chance than everybody else of being able to do this, and let's deal with that. As far as races are concerned, I did a couple things with them. Like, halflings actually have +2 to sleight of hand. They have +2 to tinkering. They have -3 to climb. Although the fluff in my game is if they're using any kind of climbing gear, they actually get double the benefit from that climbing gear. They get a +4 in stealth because they're little tiny guys, and they get a -1 to read languages and read magic. Half elves just get +2 to stealth and bushcraft and to searching. Gnomes we get +2 to tinkering and +4 to stealth, kind of standard. -3 to climb, and they get +4 to either bushcraft or architecture, depending on what area they live in. If there's a forest gnome, then they're going to get more towards bushcraft. If they lived underground with dwarves, then they're going to get it towards architecture. Dwarves get +3 to tinker at this point, -2 to climb, +6 to architecture because they're good at that stuff. -1 to read magic, read languages. Elves get +1 to sleight of hand, +3 to stealth, +1 to read magic, +4 to search at least. Let's see, and then half-orcs themselves get +1 to sleight of hand, +1 to tinkering, and let's see, to assassination even, and bushcraft, climbing, and -1 to read languages and read magic. So kind of standard type things with that. And like I said before, I don't like a huge, big skill system, but I like to have some. And so, because I wanted the actual ability scores to modify these, I finally went with a D20 thing. But it's still going to be like you have to roll low, so you have X amount of chance in 20. And as I've said before, when I was talking about thief skills and whatnot, it's all situational. If something's a particular easy task, then yeah, I'm going to give you some more chances. And if something's a hard task, then it might be a little harder for you. So that's what I'm doing with skills. It's not crazy complex, but I really dug the way Lamentations of the Flame Princess did it, and so I kind of wanted to emulate that, but still be able to add in a little bit more of a granular system, and also your ability scores modifying that. So that's what I've done. Oh, there's